Greetings, booktubers. Welcome back to Grammaticus Books. And today we are talking Lin Carter's creation, his hero Thongor, Thongor of Valkarth, and specifically we're talking Thongor and the Dragon Cities, the Dragon City, number 2 in the series by Lin Carter, number 1 being The Wizards of Lemuria. I just finished this book today, and I'm going to do a review for it here on the channel and answer the question, is the Thongor series, at least based upon this sample here, this limited sample size, is it worth the price of admission? Should you invest your time and energy into reading this series, or is it absolute trash that you should shun at all costs? Now, when you're talking Lin Carter, you are spinning the roulette wheel of quality writing, and you just don't know what you're going to get. You could wind up with The Black Star here by Lin Carter, which is actually a very well-written, very entertaining fantasy novel by Lin Carter. Or you could just as easily wind up with The Nemesis of Evil, which is just a dreadful book. This book is horrible, despite its wonderful Don Mates cover artwork that it has on it. In fact, this may go down as the worst book that I read this year. So the question is, how is The Dragon City with Thongor by Lin Carter? Where did it wind up? And by the end of this video, we're going to answer that question. But first, let me read you a little bit of the blurbs about Thongor so you can understand what you're getting into here with the Dragon City. Thongor and the Dragon City by Lin Carter, by the creator of Jandar and the stirring tradition of Conan. It steals a lot from Conan. It's not in the stirring tradition of Conan. The adventures of the mightiest sword and sorcery hero of them all. No, that would be a big fat no. And by the way, this is the Berkeley Medallion edition from 1976 with a rather poor cover on it. And then on the back of it, and this is why I picked up this book and read it, because the back blurb actually sounds like it was an interesting book. And it says, the vampire king of the lost city, Zothan had ruled in Alm for 1,000 years, master of strange powers, yet slave to his craving for human blood. The lost city lived only to serve and feed Zothan. Then came the barbarian adventurer, Thongor of Valkarth, with a city to free, a princess to rescue, glory to win, and his mighty sword to pit against the legions of wizardry and the terrifying Zothan. Thongor's greatest challenge could spell the salvation of an entire people or the warrior's own doom. And that actually sounded pretty interesting. You got a vampire king, lost cities, princesses to rescue. I'm like, all right, I'll give it a try. So how was it? How does it start off, I should say? And it starts off with Thongor. Remember, this is book 2. Thongor is in an airship. Think Barsoom, because there's going to be a lot of Barsoom in this book. He's in an airship that they've stolen. He's fleeing with the Princess Sumia of the city of Patanga out of the continent of Lemuria, because this whole series takes place on the ancient lost continent of Lemuria in the far, far past. And he is fleeing in this airship along with another supporting hero by the name of Karvis. And they are fleeing from some disaster that has happened in the opening book, which I have not read. And the whole style and setting of this novel here, particularly in the first half, if I had to describe it or I had to sum it up, it is basically Conan the Barbarian on Barsoom. If you took Conan, Robert E. Howard's Conan, and stuck him straight into Barsoom, that is exactly what you have going on here, except it's Conan devoid of all personality and character. He's just flat as a board, this Thongor character, but he is definitely, absolutely Lin Carter trying to write a Conan figure and then injecting a Conan into a clone of Barsoom, which is his continent of Lemuria. That is a very apt description of what you've got going on here. And the first half of this book, it's pretty terrible. I can't lie. It's not well written. It is basically just Thongor ping-ponging at this careening rate from one set piece to another set piece, where he encounters this string of very forgettable and interchangeable villains. It's basically just filler. There's absolutely nothing going on here with Zothan, the vampire lord of the 1,000-year-old city of Alm. There's nothing like that going on at all. It's rather bewildering, to be honest, and it's written very terribly. And let me give you just an example of some of the writing here off of page 18. And when I was reading other reviews of this, one reviewer said that if you're going to read this book, you should have to read it out loud in the most booming voice possible. And I thought that was great advice. And when I read this paragraph here, I think you'll see why that reviewer wrote that. So here's a sample of the writing in the first half of the book. Thongor took a stand by the rail, sword ready. He knew there was little or no chance to actually fight such a gigantic thing as the Larth, as a sea dragon. But Thongor's vocabulary did not include a word for impossible, as long as there remained a drop of blood or a spark of life in his magnificent body. He would continue fighting, no matter how heavy the odds were against him. And that style of writing, I mean, that just happens over and over throughout the first half of the book here. And you get a lot of, and Thongor strove more mightily than he'd ever striven before and overcame his foe, except for 10 pages later when he's fighting another foe. And he strives more mightily than he did in the previous 10 pages and overcomes that foe, and so on and so on. There's a lot of deus ex machina getting him out of these prisoner situations that he always winds up in after he gets clubbed in the back of the head with a heavy object. And it's pretty bad. And then something kind of amazing happens. Right around page 90, the story actually gets good. Or it gets, let me rephrase that. It sucks a little less starting on page 90, because right around page 90, you run into Zothan, the Vampire King, and the Lost City. And Sumia, the Princess of Patanga, at this point, she has returned back to her city, which has been usurped. Her throne has been usurped by the Yellow Druid. And you have this great exchange between Sumia and the Yellow Druid that's very fascinating. It's very good. Their city's under siege. She's back there, and she has this great dialogue back and forth with the Yellow Priest, the Yellow Druid. And at the same time, Thongor is in the grips of the Vampire King of the Lost City. And this book actually becomes interesting. This sort of minor miracle gets worked starting right around page 90, and it actually became entertaining. I wasn't pushing my way through the book going, oh God, I've got to finish this. It's only 130 pages or 140 pages Grammaticus, you can do it. It became interesting, and I got sucked into the story, and it finishes. I hesitate to call it on a high note. I hesitate to call it good, but it was actually entertaining, and I didn't hate it at that point in the novel. So is this a bad book, or is it a good book? And I'm not sure I can completely answer that. It depends on what half of the book you're talking about. The front half of this book is dreadful. It's completely irrelevant to the back half. And the back half is actually a fairly entertaining Lin Carter novel, almost on the lines here of Black Star in terms of its quality. Black Star is a little better than this book is, perhaps a lot better. But if I had to rate this book on a scale of 1 to 10, I think I would give it a 6 to a 6.5. So I'm still willing to give some of the other Thongor stories a try. I don't think maybe the final verdict may not be in here on Thongor, and it may vary from book to book. But the end of this book caught me enough. It dragged me back into it, sucked me back into the pages to the point where I am willing to give some of my other Thongor books a read as well here in GarbAugust. And we'll see if he can pull this one out. Or if this goes into the dustbin of the trash heap of GarbAugust history. But that's it. That is my review there of Thongor and the Dragon City. I hope you enjoyed it. If you've read Thongor books and have an opinion on them, please put it down in the comments section below. I do read and try to respond to all the comments. And with that, I'm going to wrap this one up here for GarbAugust. And reading trashy books in GarbAugust, call this one done and say take care, be safe, and I will catch you guys next time.